was 28 the night my world cracked open, not with a scream or a gunshot, but with the soft click of a door that should have stayed locked. My family had always prided itself on elegance, control, and a sense of perfection so polished it sometimes felt suffocating. The Calder name meant legacy, wealth, and a reputation curated through generations. But to me, it was just a gilded cage. One I didn't yet understand had been built on secrets. That night, I returned earlier than expected from a business trip. My father believed I was still in Boston, negotiating a contract. My mother thought I was stuck at the airport. No one knew I was back home, least of all the people whose truth I was about to uncover. As I stepped inside the manor, the halls were dim, the kind of quiet that settles when people believe they're alone. I dropped my suitcase near the stairs, took off my heels, and froze at the sound of muffled voices down the corridor, voices that shouldn't have been there. My father's voice. And someone else. A woman. No, my Aunt Vivian. My mother's younger sister. Her closest confidant. A woman who'd always looked at me with a strange mix of warmth and something sharper. Envy, maybe, or resentment dressed as a smile. I moved silently down the hallway until I reached the study door. The voices inside sharpened. "She's getting too curious," Vivian murmured. "She won't find anything," my father replied. "Not unless someone tells her." "You're sure? Because you know what happens if she learns the truth." My breath caught.
She?
Learns what? I leaned closer, pulse hammering. "We've kept this buried for 20 years, my father said. "I'm not letting Elena be the one to expose it all. She thinks she's stepping into the business, but she has no idea what it's built on." My skin went cold. My name, my future, the business.
They were talking about me.
Vivian's voice lowered. "If Richard ever tells her what happened back then, he won't." My father cut her off sharply. "Because if he does, he goes down with us." My Uncle Richard. My father's older brother. The one who'd disappeared from the company and from our lives 10 years ago without a trace or explanation. Every hair on my arms lifted. I needed to hear the rest. I leaned forward, just enough for the floorboard beneath me to creak. The voices stopped. I froze. Then the study door swung open. My father stared at me, eyes cold, calculating, the way a man looks when he's been seen for who he truly is. Vivian stood behind him, her expression tightening into something darker than surprise. "Elena," my father said slowly, "shouldn't you be in Boston?" I swallowed. I came back early. The silence stretched, thick and dangerous. Vivian's eyes flicked to the envelope on the desk, an old, yellowed folder marked with a date. August 14th, 2005. The year everything in our family shifted. The year no one ever talked about. The year I found my mother crying in the laundry room and she told me it was just allergies. My father stepped forward, blocking my view. "This room is private. So are the things you were discussing," I said before I could stop myself. His jaw clenched. "We weren't discussing anything relevant to you." I should have backed down. I should have walked away.
But something inside me pushed back.
"You said my name," I said. "I heard you." Vivian stepped forward, her perfume sugary and suffocating. "Sweetheart, you misheard. It's been a long day. Why don't you go get some rest?" Their gaslighting was rehearsed.
Polished.
And I wasn't buying it. My father placed a firm hand on my shoulder, more forceful than comforting. "Drop it, Elena." I looked him in the eye and whispered, "No." His expression flickered, rage, fear, calculation, like he was searching for the right mask to put on. Then he gave me a smile so smooth it sent a chill through me. "As you wish," he said. "But remember, curiosity rarely leads to anything good." I stepped back, heartbeat thunderous, and turned away from them. When I reached the stairs, I looked over my shoulder. The study door was already closing. Their voices resumed, but quieter this time. Almost a hiss. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't paranoid. My family was hiding something. Something big. Something tied to me. And I had just become the threat they feared most. That night, lying awake in my childhood bedroom, One thought looped through my mind, keeping me wide-eyed until dawn. What happened in August 2005, and why does everyone in my family want me to forget it? I didn't know it then, but the door I'd opened that night wasn't just to my father's study. It was the door to the truth that would shatter everything I thought I knew about my family, my past, and myself. Sleep didn't come that night. My thoughts kept looping back to the folder on my father's desk, August 14th, 2005, like a lighthouse signal cutting through fog, exposing danger instead of guiding away from it. By morning, I'd made a decision. If my family wanted to keep secrets, fine. But they would have to fight me to keep them hidden. When I walked into the dining room for breakfast, my father and Vivian were already there. They both wore the same forced smile, like they'd practiced it together. "Elena," my father said, too warmly. "Sleep well?" "Not really," I replied. "Strange house noises, you know how it is." Vivian's eyes sharpened. She wasn't fooled. She never was. She tilted her head. "If something is bothering you, dear, you can always come to us." I met her gaze evenly. "Oh, I will. Trust me." For a moment, something dangerous flashed across her face before she smoothed it away. My mother wasn't at breakfast, again. She'd been absent lately. Physically present, emotionally drifting somewhere far from us. When I asked about her, Dad waved it off. "Not feeling well," he said. He'd used that excuse too many times lately for me to believe it. After breakfast, I waited until they scattered to their respective corners of the house before slipping back toward the study. It was locked, of course, but the Calder family had a long history with predictable habits. My father, creature of control that he was, always hid the key in the same place, the back of the top bookshelf behind a copy of The Art of Power. I reached behind it and smiled when my fingers brushed cool metal. The lock clicked open. The room smelled like old wood, expensive whiskey, and lies. I didn't bother turning on the lights. The morning sun through the tall windows was enough. I went straight for the desk. Drawers locked, but not the bottom one. Inside lay the folder I'd seen last night. I hesitated, not because I feared what was inside, but because part of me knew this was the moment my life split into before and after. I opened it and stared. There was a police report, filed on August 14th, 2005. A missing person case. Richard Calder. My uncle. The one who vanished. Only, it wasn't a disappearance. The case summary said, "Incident at the family estate. Investigation closed by private request." Private request? Closed by whom? There were photographs.
Blurred. Dark.
Of what looked like the forest behind our estate. Someone was lying on the ground. My stomach twisted. Then a second set of documents, marked confidential. These appeared to be settlement agreements. Payments. Large sums. Sent to multiple names I didn't recognize. What the hell had they paid people for? The last document stopped my breath cold. A handwritten note. In my grandfather's handwriting. I recognized it immediately. He used to leave me birthday notes in the same heavy cursive. "If anything happens to me, the truth must be protected. Elena must never find out." And under that, a second line in a different pen, rushed and shaky. "We have no choice. Richard knows too much." My heart hammered so hard I could feel it in my teeth. Richard knows too much. Knows what? And why did my grandfather, the most honest, disciplined man I knew, write something so ominous? I barely heard the footsteps until the floorboard creaked. "Elena." I turned. My mother stood in the doorway, pale, trembling, her eyes wide with something between fear and heartbreak. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "What are you doing?" she whispered. My throat tightened. "Mom, what is this? What happened to Uncle Richard?" She shook her head, tears instantly filling her eyes. "You shouldn't have seen that."
Why?
"Why does everyone insist I stay blind?" My voice cracked. "What happened 20 years ago? What aren't you telling me?" She stepped inside, closing the door behind her. Her hands shook violently. "Elena," she said, voice shaking, "not everything can be brought back. Sometimes the truth destroys more than lies protect." "Mom." I said, please. Tell me. A single tear slid down her cheek. Before she could answer, we both froze at the sound of footsteps in the hall. My father. My mother's face drained of all color. She grabbed my arm, panic rising in her voice. Put everything back.
Now. No. Elena. No.
I'm done being treated like a child. I want the truth. But she was already frantically closing the folder, stuffing everything back into the drawer. She pushed the folder inside just as the doorknob turned. My father stepped in. His eyes took in the scene instantly. The open drawer, my mother's shaking hands, my stance, defiant and unafraid. A storm brewed behind his gaze. Elena, he said slowly, we need to have a conversation. Yeah, I said, we do. He looked at my mother.
You. Out.
She flinched. Please don't. Out, he repeated sharper. She brushed past him, tears slipping silently down her face. When she was gone, he shut the door. We were alone. He stepped closer. You're digging into things you don't understand, he said quietly. Things that can ruin this family. Maybe they should be ruined. His jaw tightened. Elena, stop this.
Now.
Before you force my hand. Are you threatening me? His eyes hardened. I'm warning you. Something inside me snapped. No, I said. Not this time. I'm not afraid of you anymore. He stared at me, expression unreadable. Then he took a breath, slow and heavy. You want answers? He said.
Fine.
You'll get them. But you won't like what you find. I held his gaze. I'll take that risk. He nodded once. Then you're about to learn why your uncle disappeared and why we made sure he never came back. A chill surged through me. My father wasn't protecting the family. He was protecting himself. And now he knew I was coming for the truth. I thought I'd already seen everything. After the messages, the lies, the manipulated documents, I really believed nothing could shock me anymore. But apparently, that was just the surface. For the third night in a row, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept spinning, replaying every conversation, every suspicious glance, every coincidence that suddenly didn't feel like one. Something was wrong, and my gut wouldn't let it go. So I went back to the archive my family always kept locked away. Old letters, worn-out ledgers, faded photos. The kind of stuff they insisted was just sentimental clutter. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. But then, I found it. A folder hidden inside another folder, taped shut, with my grandfather's initials on it. But the handwriting wasn't his. It was my uncle's. Inside were contracts, bank statements, and emails. Emails that proved everything I feared. The conspiracy wasn't just about the business. It wasn't even just about money.
It was about me.
My birth, my role in the company, the decisions they made for my own good. All orchestrated, discussed, negotiated behind my back for years. And the worst part, a name kept appearing in those emails. Someone I never expected. Someone who always acted like they were on my side. Someone I trusted. My hands were shaking so badly, I had to sit down. Because the real mastermind, the one pulling the strings from the shadows, was someone whose betrayal would hurt more than all the rest combined. And in that moment, staring at those documents, I realized the conspiracy wasn't ending. It was only just beginning. I didn't leave the archive room right away, mostly because I couldn't. My legs felt locked to the floor, like the truth I'd just discovered had chained me in place. The pages in that folder, the lies, the monitoring, the betrayal, they weren't just evidence. They were an autopsy of my entire childhood. Every time someone said, "She's too emotional." Every time they forgot to include me. Every time I was told, "This is too complicated for you." It was all part of a strategy. A long, carefully engineered campaign. I had been raised like a potential threat. Not an heir. Not family. A liability. And now, everything inside me burned. But I wasn't ready to confront anyone. Not yet. Not without understanding the full scope. The truth comes in layers. I knew I'd only peeled off the first one. So I tucked the folder into my jacket, careful, quiet, paranoid, and left the archive room, knowing it wouldn't stay undetected for long. Someone would notice it was missing, and when they did, they wouldn't stay silent. By morning, I was already in the office, pretending to work while actually combing through the printed emails again. There was something I'd missed. I could feel it. Not the betrayal, that was painfully obvious now. Something else. A name. A name that was always present but never said directly. The person who coordinated everything. Who supervised the reports about me. Who approved the edited versions of documents. Who used other people as their mouthpieces. They weren't writing the emails, but they were definitely receiving them. At 11:42 a.m., I finally found it. A single printed page, slightly misaligned, like it had been added at the last moment. A forwarded message, sent to an internal address I had seen only once in my life, hidden behind layers of admin access. The initials matched our company's silent co-founder, my grandfather's oldest friend, his trusted advisor. A man who was practically a ghost. Never in meetings, never in photos, never signing documents, yet somehow always influencing decisions. Someone who had known me since I was a toddler. Someone I barely remembered. And yet he knew everything about me. The air around me felt colder. This wasn't just a family conspiracy. This was generational. A system built long before I was born. And the person orchestrating it wasn't even officially part of the family. My phone buzzed. Blocked number. I never answer those. But today,
I did.
Stop digging. The voice was distorted. Artificial, but calm. Too calm. Who is this? My voice cracked. That's irrelevant. What matters is that you are looking at things you were never meant to see. My entire body went rigid. I don't respond to threats, I managed to say. This isn't a threat, the voice replied. It's a warning. You are approaching a truth that will destroy everything you believe about your family. Walk away now. My hand shook. And if I don't, silence. Then you will force us to accelerate the situation. The line clicked dead before I could ask what the hell that meant. 2 hours later, the consequences started. I was called into an urgent meeting. My uncle, my aunt, my cousin, all sitting around the table, looking far too composed. Sit down, my uncle said. We need to discuss your position. My position. Funny timing.
Iset.
We've been reviewing your recent behavior, my aunt began, clasping her hands dramatically. There are concerns. Concerns? I echoed, my voice flat. My cousin leaned forward. You've been emotional, distracted, unstable. Unstable. The word from the emails. I felt cold fury bloom inside me. You've been accessing restricted areas, my uncle added. Taking documents you have no authorization to review. So they already knew about the archive. Of course they did. They weren't just reacting. They were waiting. My aunt sighed, an Oscar-worthy performance. We think it's best if you take some time away. A leave of absence. Effective immediately. There it was. Their first official step to remove me. To silence me. To push me out before I uncovered the rest. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I didn't defend myself. I simply looked at each of them, one at a time, memorizing their eyes. The lies. The deceit. The fear. Because they were afraid. I saw it clearly now. I wasn't the unstable one. I was the threat they had been trying to contain for a decade. And somehow, I was finally slipping out of their control. I left the room numb, walking through the hallway like a ghost. But as I reached the elevator, someone grabbed my wrist. I turned sharply. It was my father's old accountant. A quiet man who rarely spoke. A man who never took sides. His eyes were trembling. You're in danger, he whispered. You need to leave the building right now. I know, I said. They're trying to force me out. He shook his head frantically.
No.
You don't understand. They're not trying to remove you from your job. They're trying to remove you from the inheritance. Permanently. My breath caught. He leaned in closer. And the person behind it isn't who you think. He slipped a small USB drive into my hand. Everything on here will make sense of part 3 of what you found, he whispered. But it will also destroy you if you read it alone. Be careful. Before I could speak, he walked away, disappearing into the stairwell, leaving me standing there with a USB drive that suddenly felt heavier than my entire past. I didn't go home immediately. I couldn't. If half of what the accountant said was true, then home wasn't safe. The office wasn't safe. Nowhere familiar was safe. So I walked, block after block, through the city I suddenly felt exiled from. My coat pulled tight, the USB drive burning a hole in my fist, my brain replaying his voice. The person behind it isn't who you think. I thought I knew every possible villain in my family, but apparently there was one I'd overlooked, or one I never imagined could betray me. The accountant hadn't been dramatic. He'd been terrified. And that terrified me. After nearly an hour of walking, I ducked into a quiet cafe, the kind where no one looks up, nobody asks questions, and the Wi-Fi password is scribbled on a napkin.
Perfect.
I chose a corner table where I could see everyone entering. Then I pulled out my laptop, hands shaking. When I plugged in the USB, a single folder appeared. Before you lose everything. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. I clicked. Inside were 3 files. 1, a folder of financial documents. 2, a folder of internal emails. 3, one video. I didn't open the video first. Videos are emotional. I needed logic before I let myself fall apart. The financial folder was packed. Bank transfers, hidden accounts, offshore subsidiaries, consulting fees, loans that never existed, dividends that were diverted into private pockets. At first, it looked like ordinary white-collar sleaze, ugly but not shocking. Then I saw the signature. Not my uncle's, not my aunt's, not my cousin's. My breath caught in my throat. It was my mother's. The woman who raised me to be responsible. The woman who promised that family comes first. The woman who told me to be patient with the others, that they just don't understand your potential. Her name was everywhere. Approvals, authorizations, transfers, handwritten notes. And the dates. They went back years. Way before my grandfather died. Way before I was brought into the business. Way before any of us knew there would be a fight for inheritance. My mother hadn't been a bystander. She hadn't been a victim. She had been running her own empire in the shadows. A secret one. The panic rising in my chest felt like drowning. I wasn't just dealing with greedy relatives. I was dealing with my own mother's second life. Shaking, I opened the email folder next. Page after page of correspondence between my mother and the silent co-founder, the ghostly advisor I'd identified earlier. The tone was different here. Colder.
Sharper.
Purposeful. They didn't talk about me the same way the others did. No, they wasn't worried about my emotional stability. They weren't mocking me behind my back. They weren't plotting to minimize me. They were planning something much bigger. A long-term strategy. A restructuring of the entire company. A redirection of assets. And the removal of any inconvenient heirs. Including me. My mother wrote in a tone I'd never seen. She must not realize her own rights. Keep her uninformed. We need time to finalize the transfer. Make sure the board sees her as unreliable. When the moment comes, she must sign without understanding what she's losing. I felt sick. The others, my uncle, my aunt, my cousin, they were pawns. Not masterminds. Not even co-conspirators. They were tools. My mother and the silent co-founder had manipulated all of them. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. My mother hadn't betrayed me impulsively. She'd been engineering this since I was a teenager. My hand hovered over the last file. A single video, labeled simply, for her. Not for you. Not evidence. Not watch. For her. Like it had been meant to be found by only one person.
Me.
I clicked play. The video opened with a timestamp from 4 months ago. A conference room. Dim lighting. My mother. Standing at the head of the table. Calm. Composed. Almost regal. Next to her, the silent co-founder, leaning back with the confidence of someone who believes he owns the future. My uncle was there too. My aunt. My cousin. All sitting like obedient students. My mother began speaking. Before finalizing the transition, we need alignment. She is getting suspicious. I froze. She was me. She continued. Phase 1 is complete. Her responsibilities have been minimized without triggering legal review. The psychological framing is effective. She doubts herself more than anyone else ever could. The co-founder nodded. Good. Once the relocation documents are signed, she'll be out of the inheritance pool entirely. My aunt shifted nervously. Are we sure this is necessary? She's still. Family, my mother finished for her. Then she smiled. Ice cold. Family complicates things. Business requires clarity. The room laughed softly. My mother's voice didn't waver. Once she's gone, everything falls into place. We continue with the restructuring.
No dissent.
No legal challenges.
No emotional unpredictability.
My uncle asked, and if she doesn't leave voluntarily? My mother paused, looked straight into the camera, like she knew someone might someday watch this. Then she said, everyone has a breaking point. The video ended. I didn't realize I was crying until I tasted salt on my lips. My mother, the person I'd trusted most, the only one I thought was on my side. She wasn't protecting me. She was protecting her empire. And I was just an obstacle, a liability, a disposable piece on a board that she believed she controlled. I felt something inside me fracture. Not pain, not anger, not grief. Something quieter, colder,
Sharper. Clarity.
For the first time in my life, I saw the truth without emotion clouding it. This wasn't a family. This was a system built on control, fear, manipulation, and generational power. And my mother, the woman who tucked me into bed, who ran her hand through my hair when I cried, who whispered, "I'm proud of you," was the architect of the entire machine. The accountant had been right. The danger wasn't from the obvious enemies. It never was. The real threat was the person I trusted the most. And the only way out now was to expose her.